the king who ruled without sword, lies, or betrayal. A cold night wind blew through the tall walls of the royal palace. In the heart of the great empire of Osmar, the old King Darman sat on his golden throne. His eyes, once bright with pride, were now dim. Death was slowly creeping in the darkness, and everyone knew his end was near. But there was a big problem. The king had 3 sons, and he hadn't yet announced who would inherit the throne. Prince Tigor, the eldest son, was a fearless warrior who believed in the power of his sword above all else. Prince Raval, the second son, was a cunning and ambitious man with many friends at court. And finally, Prince Aramis, the youngest son, unlike his brothers, had no interest in the power of the sword or court intrigues. He was a quiet, thoughtful, and clever man who spent most of his time among books and talking to ordinary people. One night, King Darman summoned an old seer to his palace. A man whose hair was as white as snow and whose eyes seemed to see the future. The king said in a weak but determined voice, "Tell me, which of my sons is worthy of the throne?" The seer looked at each of the 3 brothers, then closed his eyes and said, "The future king is the one who will wear the crown without a sword, without lies, and without betrayal." A heavy silence echoed in the palace. Tigor clenched his fists. Raval gave a short, mocking laugh. But Aramis, the only one who remained calm, fell into thought. The next day, the king announced that his 3 sons would compete in a contest to prove their worth. The contest consisted of 3 tests. The first test was the test of strength, which Tigor was sure he would win. The second test was the test of politics and influence, which Raval considered himself the winner of. And finally, the third test was the test of wisdom and justice, which seemed to be just a symbolic test, but became decisive for Aramis. In the test of strength, Tigor won. He defeated everyone in combat competitions and showed that no one in the empire could match him. In the test of politics, Raval won. With cunning, he gained the support of many courtiers and showed that he had great influence. But the third test was a test that no one expected. King Darman gathered all 3 sons in the great hall. He gave each of them a bag full of gold and said, "You have 3 days to buy something with this gold that can fill this entire hall. Whoever brings the best answer will be closer to the throne." On the first day, Tigor returned and bought a lot of hay. He filled the hall halfway, but couldn't fill it all. On the second day, Raval bought a lot of cloth. He tried to visually trick everyone into thinking the hall was full, but in reality, there were still many empty spaces. But on the third day, Aramis entered the hall with a small candle. Everyone looked at him in surprise. But when he lit the candle, its light filled everywhere. King Darman smiled. He knew his youngest son was the winner of the contest, but the older brothers were unwilling to accept defeat. They joined forces and plotted to eliminate Aramis from the competition. At night, 2 hired assassins attacked his room. But just as the blades were coming towards him, guards suddenly entered and arrested the assassins. Heir, one of Aramis's close associates, had previously understood the plan and silently informed the soldiers. This was where it became clear that Aramis's communication and trust-building skills were more powerful than any weapon. A few days later, King Darman was on his deathbed. He called his sons to him and said, "A king must understand his people, must be able to win hearts, not lands. I have chosen my heir." Tigor's eyes turned red with anger. Raval gritted his teeth. But before they could say anything, King Darman continued, "Heir, bring the crown." And that was the moment when Heir, the commander of the army and the most popular man at court, knelt respectfully and placed the crown on Aramis's head. The older brothers, reluctantly but without the power to protest, were exiled from the palace. Aramis, the wise king, stopped wars with his words, expanded the empire with his wisdom, and united the people with his heart. And so, the king who ruled without a sword, without lies, and without betrayal became immortal in history.